Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for tuning into my weekly guitar blog. It is Wednesday, July 6th, 2011, and it's a little bit different version of the guitar blog this week. I'm going to be doing a screen capture here because I wanted to explain something that has been asked a few times. I've had some emails about it. I just posted earlier this week a video called Diatonic Musical Patterns, and I was talking in there quite a lot about relative major and minor scales, and there were quite a few people that were not 100% clear on this whole idea. So what I've got up on the screen in front of us is I have, of course, up top here a C major scale, and C major is all natural notes. There's no sharps, no flats, and underneath that you can see here I have an A minor scale, also referred to many times as Aeolian mode or A natural minor. And it is the relative minor of the key of C major. Now let's just go through this quickly because it is a fairly simple concept. Now essentially here from the key of C major, if we go, and this by the way does not have anything to do specifically just with the key of C major, it is applied to every single major key. How it works is if you travel to the sixth note, which in the case of this particular scale, C major, it winds up being an A note. But essentially if you go from the root to the sixth degree of any major scale, you wind up on a tone that can be used as a new root to build the relative minor. Now you can see here that if you were going the opposite way, if you were in a minor key and you needed to discover the relative major, that is found on the third degree of that relative minor scale. You'll probably be doing that quite a bit more often than going from the major into the minor. You'll find that more often than not you'll be in a minor scale and you'll be wanting to discover the relative major of that minor scale. But anyway, this is as simple as it is. This is basically the principle for developing any natural minor scale. So for instance, let's say if I was in G major, if you counted 6 notes up from G, that would be G, A, B, C, D, E, so therefore that would give us E natural minor as the relative minor for the key of G major, and that just applies to any key that's out there. It's just as simple as that. Now, not to overload you with too much information, but this is the exact same principle that operates for all the modes as well. You can see here what we're doing is we're taking the major scale and we're going and choosing a step, in this case our sixth step here, and we're focusing on that to create our relative minor. Now let's say for instance if we wanted to create a mode, let's say a second degree mode like Dorian, we would begin on the second degree of the major scale, and in traveling from D to D using all the same tones, just like we have done here with A minor. A natural minor contains all of the exact same tones as C major scale. And if you played from a C major scale, if you played D to D, you would develop a scale called Dorian mode. So this is how the modes operate. In fact, relative minor is actually a mode of major scale. Again, I'd mentioned it earlier in the tutorial here, but it would be called Aeolian mode. Now, you should become familiar with your modes because they have an amazing effect on a lot of situations. A lot of musical situations can really be brought into a new light by applying modal ideas. But essentially, that's the basics of it. If you're kind of wondering what makes the A minor color jump out at you when you perform a C major scale from an A note to another A note, it has to do with the building of the various whole and half steps that occur between each of the tones of the scale itself. It's very perceptual. It's entirely an auditory effect. So essentially what happens is when you play the intervals from one note as you jump to another, it basically builds a color, and when you go from an A to an A, you get a color that is very minor. And when you would go from C to the C, the intervals or the creation of all the various half steps and whole steps between these tones, that's what creates the color of major from going C to C. So if you're thinking about how to begin your studies of music theory, my suggestion would be to, number one, start with intervals, so doing intervallic design. After moving from intervals, develop your triads, and then after triads, go into harmony. So you can remember that with the letters I, T, H. That's a great way to start off into more complex theoretical elements when you're studying harmony and theory as a new student. One thing I should, of course, mention before you're going to be able to really work effectively with any of this stuff, you're going to need to know your key signatures. So in other words, you're going to need to know things like C major scale has no sharps and no flats. G major scale has one sharp, it's an F sharp. D major scale would come up next in the sharp keys, it would have two sharps. You need to study this stuff. It's very crucial that you understand all of your key signatures. So anyway, there you go. There's the breakdown of what relative scales are. Hopefully you also learned a little bit about intervals, and you also learned a little bit about modes, and maybe you're even a little bit motivated now to study more about harmony and theory. So thanks a lot for joining me. I appreciate it, and I'll catch up with you later in the week. I'll be blogging once again. So take care, and I'll catch up with you next time. Bye for now.